Welcome to English Speaking Made Easy, your guide to good English. We are beginning as usual with the first section, which is the Grammar Express. If you remember, we had started off on telling you about the different kinds of adverbs. In fact, we discussed what an adverb of place was and what an adverb of manner was. And that was quite simple. Now, today we are going to start off with the next type of adverb, which is an adverb of time. As you can see from the title itself, here it tells us when an action takes place. Earlier, if it was how and where, this answers the question when did an action take place. And it just does not deal only with when an action happened, it also tells you how long it happened, or it also tells you how often it happened. So, when it happened, how long it happened, and how often that particular action happens. And if I give you the list of adverbs related to this, you will realize they are extremely common in English. These are adverbs which we use very, very commonly. And the interesting bit is they have standard positions in a sentence, and that is how it, and most of the time we have students going wrong in how to position these adverbs. So, that is very important for you to note. So, depending on what the adverb of time is telling us, the adverbs are positioned at different points in the sentence. For example, I went to Delhi yesterday. See the time in that particular sentence, which is the word which refers to time. You are sure it is yesterday. Now, without yesterday or without the word yesterday there, you will have no clue about when this action took place. So, I went to Delhi yesterday. Yesterday is the adverb of time. Now, what happens is, if you look at this word in the sentence in English, Njan innale Delhiil poi. This is how we speak in Malayalam. So, innale does not come at the end. That is what we mean by yesterday, but it does not come in the end. So, when we translate that into English, we often tend to use the same syntax when we use that into English. So, if you were to say, I went yesterday to Delhi, of course, all the words are there, but how you have positioned the adverb makes it sound a little awkward. So, if you are giving another sentence, I saw Sally today, I will call you later. In all these sentences, you see the adverb of time is placed at the end. I have to leave now. Now is the adverb. I saw that movie last year. So, in all these sentences, you see the adverb coming at the end, the adverb of time when an action took place. Now, when you put an adverb at the end, it is called the neutral position. Okay, which means that these adverbs are neutral in the sense that they do not specify any particular thing. Yes, let us put that at the time. But if you change the adverb, if you put it in other positions, then it is used, it goes beyond its neutral function, it is used to give a different emphasis. Okay. So, all adverbs that tell us when something can be and when something happens, remember it can also be placed in the beginning of the sentence. And when you place that at the beginning of the sentence, then the idea is you are emphasizing the time element. Please remember, when you place it at the end, it is a neutral sentence. There is no emphasis of any sort. But when you want to emphasize the time element, you put that at the beginning of a sentence. Okay. Tomorrow I am going to Delhi. So, you are emphasizing on the fact that tomorrow that the word tomorrow, when that time element is if you want to emphasize, you can put it in the beginning. Otherwise, I am going to Delhi tomorrow. So, it all depends upon your purpose, what you intend to do with that sentence. Now, in formal writing, which is not generally when we speak, but in formal writing, it can sometimes be placed after the main verb. But not all of these adverbs of time cannot fill in that position, some can. Like for example, if you look at this, okay, later I ate some biscuits. Here we see the time is important, so later has come in first. The second sentence is, look at where the later is positioned. I later ate some biscuits. Now this is more formal. This is like if a policeman were asking you a report or some of sorts, you would say, at first I think I went home, then I later ate some biscuits. That's more formal. Okay, and then the neutral one of course is, I ate some biscuits later. It has no particular emphasis. So there are three things. I think for you it would be good to remember these. The formal writing bit is optional, but I would like you to remember that where you position the adverb of time, at the beginning and at the end, what does it imply? Okay, so depending on what you wish to imply, you can either place it at the beginning or at the end. Now we are going to go on to the next one, that is an adverb of time which tells you how long something happened, how long the action took place. The first one was when the action took place. The second bit is how long the action took place. So for that, look at these sentences which will give you an idea as to what adverbs we use to express how long. First one, she stayed at home all day. So if I ask you how long did she stay at home, your answer is simple, all day. And all day comes at the end. She stayed at home all day. So all day is the adverb of time here. My mother lived in France for a year. So how long did your mother live there? For a year. So that's an adverb of time. I have been going to the school since 1996, and that here also since 1996. That's the adverb of time. Now interestingly, there is a bit of an thing that you need to remember with the use of adverb of time, that is how you use the words for and since. I keep repeating this because this is a constant source of confusion. So when you look at it, we are speaking about something in terms of a duration of action. We say for. I have been following this matter for about 10 years. But if you are using a point of time, then we use since. It is the distinction between the use of for and since that I am trying to emphasize here. Point of time, since. Period of time, for. Okay. Look at these sentences and we will just go through that once again. So the next examples will clarify that idea for you. I stayed in Switzerland for 3 days. 3 days. Period of time. So we've used the adverb for 3 days. I am going on a vacation for a week. Again, it's a period. Okay. I've been riding horses for several years. All these refer to a period of time. Now if you're looking at since, I have been working here since last year. Since is one point of time. He has been living here since 2010. 2010, since, it's a point of time. So just remember not to go wrong. Okay. Jim has been working here since 1997. So in these sentences we use since because it refers to a point of time. So get that distinction clear, since and for, because if you interchange it then it goes completely wrong. Okay. Now let's go on to the next one. So we said when something happens, how long something happens, and now we are going to say how many times something happens. Okay. The third bit when we speak about an adverb of time is the frequency, how often something happens. So for that we use a lot of words like, just think about it in a sentence when you want to use it. These words or the adverbs which show frequency of an action, they are generally placed before the main verb. Okay, remember they are placed before the main verb. When we get the sentence, I will show you where it is placed. I will tell you how it comes in. But then there are certain auxiliary verbs. If you remember, we've done auxiliary verbs before. So there are certain auxiliary verbs wherein it comes after, and they are given as have, may, must, be. Be is that is, are, am and all that. Be, have, may and must. With these auxiliary verbs, the adverb of time always comes after them. So we can clarify it in an example. I often eat vegetarian food, whereas the main verb here is eat, and the adverb of frequency goes just before that. I often eat vegetarian food. He never drinks milk. See, the adverb of time is placed just before the main verb. Now, what happens if we do not place it there? If you go wrong in that word structure, he never drinks milk. He drinks milk never. You can't place it there. Never he drinks milk. That is also wrong. So, you cannot change that word in its position. It will not make sense in that context. Okay. Now, look at that. You must always fasten your seat belt. Now, here if you look at it, the adverb of time always does not come before the main verb, it comes after. Okay. It comes after the auxiliary must. You must always. So, the thing is, just to correct that, whenever you are using this word must, the adverb of time will come after it. I am okay. So, there are 4 or 5 words I had given you, a few some auxiliaries. Whenever you use them, it always comes after the auxiliary. Other sentences here are I am seldom late. The auxiliary be. Be the form of am. Am is a form of the auxiliary be. So, here seldom comes immediately after the auxiliary. We mentioned that before. He rarely lies. Another sentence which shows an adverb of frequency, how often something tells you. Okay. So, just rounding up that bit, the adverbs of frequency tell you when or how often something happens. Always, rarely, never, seldom, sometimes. They tell you how often something happens. And like I mentioned, whenever you are writing them in a sentence, these are always placed just before the main verb, except in the case of certain auxiliary verbs like be, must and all that, where it is placed after the auxiliary verb. Otherwise, it is placed before the main verb. So, that helps you in building up the structure of a sentence, because when you do not use it at the right point, it can become the sentence structure can collapse. So, we need to know exactly where we place these adverbs. Now, we are moving on to the next segment, which is Lexica, your guide to good vocabulary. If you remember, in the last episode, we had dealt with some very basic words about the kind of people who are involved in the business of books. We also gave you words like bestseller and climax and anticlimax and storyline and all that. Now, we are going on, just taking it further on the very same umbrella topic of books and reading. We are going on to something which is about the types of books that we have. Okay. And I know most of you are aware of the types of books, but as I go through, there could be perhaps 1 or 2 that you may not have come across, and that's the advantage. So, we are going on for that. You know that there is fiction, there is a novel. You know what a novel is. You know there is a form of writing called the short story. Sometimes you will hear something like a saga. A saga means a long story of heroic achievement. You know, it will always, most probably it might have some kind of a historical perspective. So, it is a long, the setting could be historical, a long story of heroic achievement, that is a saga. Okay. Then we will have other words, other kinds of books that we have. Okay. We have autobiographies and biographies. Now, autobiography is when you write your life story. Biography is when someone else researches into your life and writes about it. So, you have an autobiography and a biography, another kind of book. Now, if you are writing a book and you are releasing another book which is like a second part of the first book, it is often referred to as a sequel. Please remember that word, very, very useful word. It is called a sequel. Now, this is a sequel to my first book. We have movies like that, we have books like that. So, it is like the second part of the first book. And sometimes you can have books which like a trilogies. You have the Shiva trilogy, you have 3 books with the same, you know, it has a kind of continuum going in. Now, if you are a travel writer, then you write a travelogue. You write about the places you've gone to, and that's what we call a travelogue. And if you read a book, like if you read Shiv Khera's book, or if you read books which help you, there could be books on motivation, books on leadership, and these are books are meant to help you develop as a person, and they are called self-help books. Okay, they are called self-help books. And then of course, if there are elements of paranormal and activity and all in your book, it's called a horror story. Books which have a historical novel which deals with some element or some phase or time of history. Okay, so these are all different kinds of books that you can have. So you can also have books which are what we call science fiction. Science fiction books are very futuristic. They may talk about something like, what do you call, they can talk about, I think H.G. Wells is one person who comes to my mind first when I think of science fiction. He wrote his books way back, but everything had a very futuristic tone, and we've all learned H.G. Wells in school, War of the Worlds, Time Machine, all these are books of science fiction. And then you can have crime novels, and if you have novels which have a lot of graphics, could be cartoons or pictures, and all, you call it a graphic novel. Graphic novels are very, very popular today. So these are some kinds of books. Now there are different categories or genres of writing. We have fiction and fantasy and non-fiction. I would like to bring your attention to one kind of writing which is called a satire. Okay, this word is very important because satire is when a writer uses humor or exaggeration to ridicule and criticize a particular, it could be, sometimes they use it to ridicule society, sometimes to ridicule the government. Okay, so they use a literary device wherein they use that as a satire against contemporary politics. ഈ കളിയാക്കിയിട്ട് പറയുന്നതാണ്, ബട്ട് they don't they use it, they create that novel around that thing. Usually topical issues ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടല്ലോ, അതൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് when you make fun of it, sometimes using a lot of what do you call, you use a lot of satire to make fun of contemporary events, and that's called a satire. Okay, then along with that, if you look at, when you're reading a book, you will have different kinds of characters in a novel. One is what we call it's nice that you know what these words mean. The protagonist in a novel and the antagonist. We often refer to them as hero and the heroine. Now the protagonist is the main character. So you're speaking about a book. Well, the protagonist in my new book is a travel writer. So it means the main character. And the opposite of protagonist is the antagonist. He is the villain. So that's a nice way of speaking about a book. You have a protagonist and you have an antagonist. Okay, so with this we come to an end of our vocabulary section, and we covered different kinds of books. We spoke about satires, we spoke about how different characters in a book can be referred to. So all this is very, very important when you want to speak about books. If you are a book lover, if you love speaking about books, I'm sure each of these words will help you to improve the way you express your love for books and reading. Now let's move on to the next section. Let's say it right. Your guide to good pronunciation. Today I've got a few words for you, certain words which, like I always say, when you tend to go wrong while pronouncing them. So the first word I have for you is MENU. Imagine you're going to a restaurant and that's what the waiter brings you. It has a list of all the items they have at their restaurant. So it's not a menu, it is a menu. It's a menu, it's not menu. The second word, this frightful disease which completely incapacitates you. You have fever and you have vomiting and your and your platelet count goes down. And this is a common seasonal kind of fever which comes in. It is not dengue, it is dengue. Okay, you don't pronounce it dengue. We pronounce it dengue because the spelling is D-E-N-G-U-E, and so we go by the spelling, but actually it is not pronounced dengue, it is dengue. Okay, the next one, B-O-W-L, it's a patram, that's what it's not bowel, it's not bowl, it is bowl, it's not bowel, it is bowl, B-O-W-L, please pass me the bowl, not please pass me the bowel, So, it is bowl. The next word, epitome. This is one of my favorite words and a word which I find people have multiple pronunciations for this. The word is not epitome. It is not epitome. It is pronounced epitome. Epitome. Okay, it's a lovely word, especially in writing, and epitome refers to the peak, the best example of something. You know, Mahatma Gandhi was the epitome of, you know, whatever qualities you have. He was the APJ Abdul Kalam was the epitome of, epitomizes, or was the epitome of hard work. So the word is pronounced epitome, not epitome, it is epitome. Now we have this particular drink, and this drink is, I chose this word because this drink is quite popular and you see it in a lot of menus nowadays. A lot of people see this word, you see it, but most of the time we go by the direct spelling and we pretend to pronounce it as mojito, M-O-J-I-T-O. Of course, if it is M-O-J-I-T-O, we assume it should be pronounced mojito. But actually this is a drink, it is an alcoholic drink, it is made, it is like a cocktail. It has rum and lime and sugar and mint and all that, and this cocktail is not mojito, it is called mojito. Mojito. It is not j, it is mojito. So you don't say mojito, lime mojito, it is mojito, okay, not mojito. Now the next word is these two words which happen to have these S at the end, and that S at the end is what takes us by surprise each time we try to pronounce them. This word is not, the first word is chassis. Now it looks like a fancy word, not a very common word also, but I am just used it because in case you come across this word, and it will help you to know how it is pronounced, because the meaning is very simple, the word just seems quite fancy. Okay. Though we have an S at the end, we do not say chassis, it is chassis. The other word which has a similar problem with pronunciation, that is why I took both of them together, is the word debris. Now debris, of course, most of us know, all those leftovers, you know, after a building has collapsed, it is called the debris. If you have an airplane crash, all that falls down, it is called a debris. So the earthquake, what is left behind is the debris of a building. So D-E-B-R-I-S. Now debris, the other is chassis. The thing is, the S is not pronounced in both these words. Okay. Now what is a chassis? In case you are interested to know what the meaning is, it just refers to the physical framework. Like before you make an automobile, you have a framework of it, isn't it? It could be an automobile, could be an airplane, could be a desktop. That physical framework of that is called a chassis. Okay. So the meaning is simple, not so it is called chassis, and the other one is debris. Okay. So with that we come to an end of our pronunciation section. We will slowly move over to a last section for this episode, which is let's talk. Here we have a small conversation between two friends at the supermarket. So let us go on directly into the conversation. Yes? Okay. At the supermarket we have two friends, Rachel and Susan. Okay. So Rachel tells Susan, "Hey Susan, I am quite free today. How about baking a cake?" Look at the expression, how about baking a cake. How about is used when you want to give a suggestion. How about going out for dinner? How about baking a cake? So Susan says, how about baking a cake when we get home? And Susan says, yes, that's a brilliant idea. We better buy some ingredients while we are here. Now two bits here. One is, you see how she began that sentence, that's how we generally say. We use these words like well, all those words are kind of used to kind of carry on that conversation. She says, yes, that's a brilliant idea. And that expression, that's a brilliant idea, is a wonderful expression. You use it on any person and they feel, they feel empowered, because when you tell them it's a brilliant idea, we better buy some ingredients then while we are here. And Rachel says, okay, so do you know what we need to bake a cake? Do you know what we need to bake a cake? What should we buy? Susan says, I use my grandmom's tried and tested recipe. Tried and tested means utri pravasham try cheyida 100% foolproof ana. Okay, I use my grandmom's tried and tested recipe. It calls for flour, sugar, icing sugar and butter. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I nearly forgot. And we also need some eggs and chocolate chips. So she says, oh, I nearly forgot. We also need some eggs and chocolate chips. And well, Rachel says, okay, well, you get the dairy ingredients. So Rachel tells Susan, well, you get the dairy ingredients. And Susan responds, I don't remember where the dairy products are. And Rachel says, why don't you ask the salesperson, or why don't you ask their staff? I guess you'll find them in the refrigerated section, which is close to the billing counter. And I'll get all the other ingredients as they're in aisle 6. Now, aisle 6, what is an aisle? There are different rows. It's a rows in the supermarket. It's called an aisle, that narrow passageway between two shelves. So some in large supermarkets they might number the aisles. So I think I'll get them there in aisle 6. Susan says, great then, let's meet at the checkout. I'm so looking forward to baking this cake now. And Rachel says, okay, let's go, I'll see you there shortly. Now that's about how you slowly get this conversation going. Two friends together, keen to make a cake. You see them giving suggestions to each other, you see them asking questions to each other, and you see some new expressions and some new words also popped up in the discussion. Okay, so with that we come to an end of today's episode. We'll meet you again with another interesting episode of English Speaking Made Easy. Till then, bye.